Get okay. For today's session, what we are going to be exploring is we're going to be exploring deeper into self-awareness. So, you guys had a session with Rory on Monday all about values. Let me know in the chat box, how did you find that session? How did you find it going through those core values? Were you able to? Let me know in the chat box, how was that session? Okay, and while you're letting me know in the chat box, how did you feel diving through all your values? Just to let you guys know, we are going to have a one-on-one session with each of you to go through it in depth. I know sometimes values can be quite overwhelming, right? So we are going to go one-on-one in for those of you that are doing coaching with us, obviously, and we are going to explore deeper into those values. Okay, so Priya said it was really insightful, right? It's really, really a great session to dig deep into all those core things that matter most to you. Okay, so what are we going to be covering in today's session? In today's session, we are going to be covering what is self-awareness. We're going to be covering steps on how to develop self-awareness, a couple strategies for the most important areas we need to develop self-awareness around. We're going to be touching on something called mindfulness. And then also, we're going to do a little activity at the end called present moment awareness. Hey, Carolyn, great to have you joining us. We've just gotten started. All that you missed is shaking it out, shaking out the energy of the day, and putting a big smile on your face, getting ready for today's workshop. Beautiful. So, today's workshop, like we said, is self-awareness. Now, I want to find out from you, beautiful ladies, since it's ladies' night tonight, what do you understand about self-awareness and why do you think it's important? So you're either going to let me know in the chat box or you can unmute yourself and let me know. So I want to find out from you guys, what is your understanding of self-awareness? Why do you think it's important? So let me know either in the chat box or you can unmute yourself. There you go, Carolyn.
Hiya. Sorry, I was a bit
And
delayed. I had to turn my phone on and off because I couldn't log on. Sorry about that.
saw you
Um,
join.
yeah, exactly. So self-awareness. A lot of people don't even have this. So it's about being aware of our emotions, our feelings, how we come across, about perceivements, how that works. And I think it's all about self-development, about growing. And that's obviously why it's important, because it enables us to grow. It enables us to be the best version of ourselves. It enables us to go into that self-love, because once upon a time before I came to Doha, I didn't even know what that was all about. So when you get into that space of understanding and realizing if you were triggered, whether you were mirrored, and where you are, then you start appreciating, forgiving, and I think that's where then your self-esteem, yourself, you start getting more confidence in yourself, because a lot of us don't think we are enough, and we have issues from our childhood and our inner child. And I think once you start becoming aware, then that's how you grow.
Absolutely beautiful, Karen, and thank you for sharing, right? Jelna says it's the ability to understand our emotions and control it. Absolutely beautiful, definitely a part of self-awareness. Aisha says to understand my feelings and my actions, the cause of them and the results of them. Beautiful, good job, team, right? So self-awareness is the ability to recognize and understand your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, your motivations, and your actions, your reactions. Why do you act the way that you do? Why do you respond the way that you do? Right? Carolyn mentioned a beautiful little word called triggers. We're going to be digging a little bit deeper into that today and understanding where that comes from. Right? So it involves introspection and reflection. So, what it really means is you getting a deeper understanding of yourself and how you relate to the world around you. See, most people live in a constant state of noise and chaos, right, in their head. And they think that that's all that there is. A lot of people live in a reality that's so overwhelming, in a constant state of reactivity, being pushed and pulled by the thoughts and the emotions that they experience. So, developing the self awareness allows us to develop awareness of this voice that's going on in our head, right? Because most people are controlled by this voice inside of their head that worries about everything that could go wrong, right? This little voice inside of their head criticizes them for everything that they do wrong, or it could make them feel guilty or angry about any mistakes that they've made, right? And the thing is, this voice is not actually an accurate representation of actual reality, but rather their own perception. Have you guys ever heard of the term self talk? Has anyone ever heard of the term self talk? Right? So, self talk is what we call that little voice in your head, right? And the thing is, every single person has self talk, but the difference is the difference in what that voice is saying. Now, that voice interprets every situation, and we don't actually question what that voice says, right? How often do we actually stop and ask ourselves, is what this voice saying actually true? Right. Why? Because generally, when this voice is speaking, it happens unconsciously, meaning that we're unaware of it. Remember, we spoke about in our previous session on Monday, a previous session last week, Wednesday, the difference between conscious and unconscious, or conscious and subconscious, right? So, our self talk is something that happens unconsciously. We're not aware of it, and then we feel and act based on that self talks, that voice's interpretation. But the thing is, that voice, that interpretation, this is a conditioned response, meaning that whatever that voice is saying, it's been conditioned to say that. It's come from our upbringing, from the people that we were around, right? And it's not necessarily always the truth. It's a conditioned response, right? It's automatic, unconsciously, it's happening. And everybody has that voice, right? You have that voice, your clients will have that voice, your children, your partners, your colleagues. And some people's voices are a lot nicer than other people. But very often we'll tend to see that there's patterns that happen. Everyone has similar dysfunctions in similar areas. And the thing is, what we learn to understand throughout coaching is that you are not that voice, right? That voice is a combination of all the voices that you've ever heard, good or bad, positive and negative. Your best friend from school, but also your school bully, your auntie who supported you, and a stranger who maybe didn't support you, right? So voices that you've heard since birth from your family members, your best friends, everything that you've ever heard has accumulated and has created the storage of things that that voice could potentially say. So, what we need to then realize is that there's actually two of you, right? There's the one that's doing the thinking, the feeling, and the reacting. This is our conscious or subconscious, right? This is that automatic voice. So, this one is happening without awareness. But then there is the other part of you, and that is the awareness. That is the part of you that's aware of the thoughts and the emotions and the reactions. This is that controlled part of you, right? But at the depth of it, at the core of it, you are that awareness, right? You are the presence that witnesses the voice, but you are not that voice. So think about it right now as I'm busy speaking. you've got your voice going off in your mind, right? It's saying, it's criticizing what I'm saying, it's criticizing what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Maybe it's reminding you of something that you forgot to do today, something that you still need to do, right? But what's very important to understand as a human being, as a person who deals with other people, who deals with ourselves, but also as a coach who is ideally going to be working with other people, is that different people have different levels of awareness. And every single person will benefit from developing more self awareness. Some of your clients will be more self aware than others, just as some of you here today are perhaps more self aware already than others, right? Some have people have been exposed to this type of thinking while others haven't. So the thing about awareness is it's something that we can develop. It's something that we can grow, right? It's something that we can actually work on. And when we become more aware and we learn to control more of what that voice is saying rather than just listening to it and responding, reacting, we get to start retraining what that voice is saying. So we can actually start shifting and rewiring what that internal talk is saying. And this makes the biggest difference in our lives, right? The difference between feeling supported, the difference between having high self esteem, high self love, right? The difference between feeling empowered and feeling disempowered can literally be just a shift in that self talk. So, what we're going to do today is go over some of the strategies where we can develop self awareness. And we're going to start with that self talk, right? Because self talk is the biggest thing that affects us, the biggest thing that controls us. And very often I'll have a coaching client that will come to me, right? And they'll be upset, they'll be hurt because of what someone said to them. But the truth is, when we're hurt or upset about what someone else said, it's not necessarily what that person said that it affected them, but it's what they said to themselves afterwards. That's what affected them the most, right? So if we're feeling confident, if we have a high level of self esteem and a high level of self worth, if we have a high level of self love, and someone says something negative to us, it's very easy to kind of brush it off and understand that that's got nothing to do with us. It's got more to do with the person who said that than it is a reflection on ourselves. Or we could take it as honest, constructive criticism, right? Something, an area that we can improve. However, if I'm struggling with a low sense of self esteem, a low sense of self worth, a low sense of self love, and someone says something belittling to me or something mean or they criticize me, then I'm going to take it as something really bad. And in my mind, I'm going to repeat that same thing and fight with myself, right? So developing awareness of self talk is so crucial. So the first step is we're developing awareness around our self talk and our internal dialogue. And when we're saying our internal dialogue, there's two elements to that, right? The first part of that is the language that I'm using, right? Because the language that we use paints a different scenario to the conversation. So I don't know if anyone here has ever studied into chronic pain or if someone has something that they have chronic pain with, an ongoing sense of pain, right? So I did quite a lot of studying into chronic pain because I've got endometriosis. So I get a lot of stomach pain, especially in the middle of the night, which disrupts my sleep. And then I barely sleep. And it's a whole big thing, right? So I did a lot of studying into this. And one of the points that came up is you've got to be so careful of the language that you're using when you're in pain, right? So if I have a stomach pain, and I say to myself, oh, this is this is devastating. This is horrific. I feel like my stomach is being stabbed by a knife. Right? That's pretty intense. right? How do you think that version of the story is going to make me feel? Going to make me feel pretty intense, right? Like, this is hectic. I'm being stabbed by a knife. How painful would that be? So, what I learned through this app is if you start reframing the way that you're voicing this, so instead of saying, I feel like I'm being stabbed by a knife, we could say something like, I'm feeling a little bit of discomfort that doesn't feel quite the same as usual, right? Sorry. So when we change the language, we change the experience because every word that you say to yourself fires and wires specific neural networks in your brain, right? It's setting off different signals and it's either setting off a response, a chemical reaction to release endorphins, to release adrenaline, to release cortisol, right? Every single word that you say releases a chemical explosion in your body, right? So we have to be very careful with the language that we use. If I had to make a mistake and I say to myself, oh, Shrees, you're so stupid. Why do you always do this? Why do you always make a mistake? Why do you always mess up? How do you think that kind of language is going to make me feel? Do you think that's going to make me feel good if I feel like I always make mistakes, that I'm stupid, right? Or do you think it's going to make me feel not so good? It's going to make me feel not so good. Absolutely, right? It's going to make me feel really bad. Whereas if I just shifted the language slightly and said, oh, I made a mistake, that's okay. Every mistake shows me how to do better. Oh, I made a mistake, right? It's part of the process, it's part of the learning experience. I'm human. Very different outcome, very different experience that's going on, right? So the language that we use and the tone that you use is so important, right? If you use a very harsh tone when you're speaking to yourself, if you use a very harsh tone and harsh language, chances are you're going to end up using a harsh tone with other people. You're going to be using harsh language with other people. Why? Because it's normal. And let me ask you, how does it feel when someone uses a harsh tone and harsh language to you? Does that make you feel more connected? Or does that make you feel hurt and like disconnected from the person? Maybe that you don't want to actually spend more time with this person, right? So developing a healthier internal self-talk is not only about ourselves feeling better, but it also comes out in our relationships because how you treat yourself will generally be how you start to treat other people, right? So we have to be very conscious of the tone that you use. Same thing. If I had to make a mistake and I'm like, oh, you're so stupid, right? Whereas I did this activity once many, many, many years ago. And what they said is if you can find a tone that's almost humorous when instead of being critical or harsh, then you change the experience completely, right? So if you could use like a Mickey Mouse tone, right? Or a Donald Duck. I'm not very good with accents. I'm not going to try and you do it, right? But what I use is I like to use my brother, and I've got an older brother, and when he was little, his biggest wish was for a little sister. So here I came, and my mom said to him, "Well, now you've got this little sister, you need to take care of her." And growing up, he really took care of me, right? We were best friends growing up. Everywhere he went, this little sister came along. If he went to a friend's house, there was me with my little backpack coming along as well, right? And whenever I made a mistake, sometimes I could be really harsh on myself. I'm more critical than my brother is. I'm more harsh. But if I make a mistake, he would say to me, ha ha ha, peanut, and he'd carry on, right? He'd never belittle me. He'd never bring me down, right? So when I did this activity years ago, I started to think of, okay, what is a voice inside of my head that I feel comfortable when I make a mistake, that I feel supported in a tone? So now when I make a mistake, I'm like, peanuts. And I think of my brother, and then I feel a lot better, right? I remind myself that I'm human and it's okay to make a mistake, right? Because we're human. So I want you to think perhaps of an area where you could be quite critical or harsh with yourself, right? And I want you to ask yourself, is that inner voice, is the way that you speak to yourself, is it encouraging or is it critical? Are there any recurring thoughts or phrases of, I'm not good enough, or I always do this? You'll never be like this. Right? And just try and imagine that scenario in your head. Maybe a recent time where you were critical or harsh with yourself. And if you don't have one, that's okay. That's great. Don't worry. Right. But just remember this activity for later on. And ask yourself, how could I reframe this talk? How could I use a different voice to allow myself to experience this in a better way? Because whatever you say, these aren't just words in your head. Your body believes every single word and it responds in reaction to that. So, is that inner voice kind, compassionate, and understanding? Or perhaps where it's being critical and harsh, ask yourself, would you speak to someone that you truly love in that same way? Would you say it with that same tone? Would you say those same kind of things? If you were speaking to your child, if you were speaking to your best friend, they made a mistake, they did something bad, they had this fear about themselves, how would you speak to them? How would you encourage? How would you support them? And ask yourself, do you speak to yourself with that same level of respect, that same level of understanding, that same level of compassion and kindness? Because if not, why? Why do you feel that you are less worthy of being spoken to in a nice way? Right? I coached an elderly lady once, and she had such uh, anger inside of her that she used to clench, and she was like 70, right? This cute like little old lady. She'd clench her hand so badly that she'd start to get cuts here, she'd start to bleed. And she worked with children. She used to do music lessons for children. And when I spoke to her about it, she says, well, it's just, I just get so angry with myself. I don't know why I make these mistakes. And I always make these mistakes. And I'm so stupid. And I said, okay, if one of your students played the keys wrong, or they didn't do the instrument right that you were trying to teach them, would you speak to them that way? She's like, of course not. No, of course not. I would never speak to a child like that. But why do you think you're any less deserving, right? If they are deserving of compassion and kindness, and you wouldn't speak to them in a way that you wouldn't want to hurt them, why would you speak to yourself any differently, right? Because we get fooled into this idea that criticism is what's going to help us to get better, right? But it's actually compassion and understanding and kindness. And when you change how you speak to yourself, you literally rewire your brain, right? That neuroplasticity that we're speaking about. Your genes change, your immune system changes. When you change your self talk, you change your entire energy. You change your life. You show up differently, right? It's not just speaking more positively, but it's feeling those emotions associated with it, right? Because when you feel those emotions, it literally creates a different kind of energetic signature. And this is what neuroscience is, right? It's training your brain to fire differently. You change the voice, you change the emotion you experience, you change the emotion you experience, you change the actions, you change the actions, you change your life, right? And it's not just made up, it's not just metaphors. This is science. right? They've done scientific studies on this. And that is why developing awareness around your self-talk is so crucial, especially if you're wanting to help others. You have to start with yourself, right? You have to be kinder, more compassionate, more understanding with yourself because it's very, very difficult to give someone else something that you don't have. It's very, very, very difficult to give out unconditional love if you haven't learned to love yourself unconditionally. Because how can you give something to someone else that you don't have or that you don't even understand? Right? So I want you to start asking yourself, what is the most common thing that you say to yourself when you face a challenge? What is that voice saying? And how could you reframe that voice to be more kind, more accepting, more compassionate? How would you be speaking to someone else that you love in the same way? Right. So if there's a specific phrase that you know that you say, when you say that phrase, it doesn't make you feel good. I want you to write out that phrase and then I want you to rewrite it as if you were saying it to your best friend. So if it was, I'm so stupid, I always make these mistakes, I can't get anything right. What would you say to your best friend? Right? What would you say to your child? What would you say to your partner? Right? You do so many things well, right? Doesn't mean that you're stupid. This is one small thing that you got wrong, and it's okay. Mistakes happen. You're human, right? It's a way that you can get better, right? It's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not be perfect. Perfect is boring, right? There's no area for growth. And growing is what gives us fulfillment, right? Growing is what makes us feel good. So when we have an area that we can grow in, that's something that's exciting. So how can we reframe that voice? And what I want you ladies to do, and anyone who's listening in the future, right? What I want you to do for the next couple of days, right? 7 days is all it takes. 7 days, and you can start rewiring this inner self-talk, but you have to be consistent. You have to show up and you have to be consistent with challenging that self-talk, right? And you'll see me if you've seen me in the coaching sessions or you'll see me throughout this training. I want you to speak to that self talk as if it's someone else, right? When that little voice pops its head up, you say, hey, no, you don't. Ha, that is an old story. That is not the truth. I'm not capable. Excuse me. Who said that? I am capable, right? So you start challenging that little self talk as if it's someone else. And you do this for just 7 days. That's all I'm going to ask you to do for 7 days. When a negative thought pops up, when a negative self talk pops up, you challenge it, you reframe it as if you were speaking to your best friend, and we start rewiring those neurons, right? We start retraining the way that we communicate. Because imagine that self talk was someone who supported you. It's like your best friend, your number one supporter, right? Who showed you all the beautiful things in life, who showed you all the beautiful things about yourself, who inspired you and motivated you, and was there clapping in your corner instead of criticizing you or bringing you down. Imagine how different life could be, right? So, the first area, the most important, we said is self-talk, right? That's our challenge for the next 7 days. The second area where we start developing self-awareness around is our emotional responses and our state management. Right. We've got a session coming on later on this training where we dive a whole session just into how to do this. But for now, all I want you to do is start developing awareness around this area. How emotions are showing up in your body. Because let me know, do you agree with me that you can feel an emotion? Can you feel when you're angry? Can you feel when you're excited in your body? Can you feel it? Yes or no? Absolutely, right? You get angry, what happens? Yes, absolutely, right? The heart rate increases. Our blood starts to boil, right? It's like your head is going to explode. You feel tension in your body, right? You feel anxious. What happens? The heart rate starts increasing. You start getting a little bit sweaty, right? You start getting a little bit nervous. Your breath starts to become a little bit more shallow, right? You start feeling sad. What happens? Oh, the body feels so heavy, right? You feel weighed down. So I want you to start bringing awareness on how these emotions are showing up in your body. What are the physical sensations that you're feeling or experiencing every time you have an emotion? And are there any patterns of emotional reactivity? So is there a pattern of anger, right? This thing happens and I get angry and angry and angry. Or this thing happens and I get sad, 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 frustrated, right? Or perhaps there's some emotional triggers, people or situation or words that set you off, right? We all experience that. Someone can just walk in a room and we feel a certain emotion, right? But the thing is, our emotions drive our decisions. So developing awareness around these emotions is absolutely crucial because your feelings will generally lead to your actions and your reactions. And suppressed emotions, when you suppress an emotion, it will keep showing up, right? Imagine if I'm a messenger and I was paid a massive amount of money and it's my duty, it's my job to deliver a message to you. And I come to you with this message and you say, no, 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 go away. I don't want to talk to you now. Am I just going to be like, okay, khalas, it's fine. She didn't accept the message. Let me just. No, if I'm good at my job, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep coming to your house. I'm going to keep showing up. I'm going to keep knocking at your door. Hello, I've got this message for you. And that's what emotions are, right? Emotions are messengers. They're there to deliver a very special message. But most of the time, we get so caught up in the physical response, or we don't actually understand what is the message behind that emotion. So we just suppress it. We try and not feel it. We try and avoid it, right? Or we get caught up in the experience of the emotion. I feel the anger again and again and again. But once I start understanding the message, anger, I feel a boundary has been crossed. Okay, now I know what steps to take. Sadness, I feel a massive loss or a perceived loss. Okay. Anxiety, something is coming. I need to prepare. Right. So once I understand the message, now it becomes more clear on the steps to take. And remember, the body never lies, it stores what the mind tries to avoid. Right. And if you keep storing emotions without dealing with them, without facing them head on and experiencing them, will lead to stress or anxiety, burnout, and even illness. Right. So it's important that we actually face our emotions and we experience these emotions. So, what to do when we feel an emotional response? Reflect on which emotions do you experience most often and how do you respond to them? Very important over the next couple of days or the next couple of weeks, I want you to start naming the emotion. Is it stress? Is it sadness? Is it frustration? Or is it something else? Because if I can start naming it, I can start understanding it. And if I can start understanding it, I can start dealing with it. And very important, we allow ourselves to feel the emotion without judgment, right? Just observing it, allowing it to happen, right? We're all women here, ladies' night tonight. How helpful is it when you're really angry or when you're really sad and someone comes along and says, you don't have to feel sad. You don't have to feel angry. That's super helpful, right? That makes us feel A-OK straight away, doesn't it? Ah, absolutely not. Right? And as a coach, it absolutely grinds me if I see someone crying or if I see someone angry and someone comes up to them and say, no, 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 don't cry. I'm like, excuse me? What do you mean don't cry? Right? If someone is experiencing an emotion There's a reason for it. There should never be someone saying, don't feel that emotion, right? Every single emotion deserves to be felt. It's there for a reason. Emotions serve us. They are not something bad. But when we're constantly living in a negative emotional space, that's when it becomes bad, right? Emotions are never bad by themselves. But when we're not dealing through the emotion, when we're not listening to the message and working through that message, that's when it becomes bad. So allow yourself to feel emotions, right? We're human beings. Sadness is there for a reason. Anger is there for a reason. Frustration, there for a reason. So we feel it, we observe it, we do not judge ourselves for feeling it. And then later on throughout the training, we learn the steps how to manage it, right? Step by step. What actions can I take to help myself feel better? Right. And when we notice the emotions and we start to label them, it helps us to start working through it and to choose healthier responses, right? It helps us to pause in that moment instead of being overwhelmed by this massive, overwhelming thing that we don't know what it is. It helps us to take control of it. Okay, we're going to go through triggers and unresolved wounds, and then we're going to have a small break before we end off. So sit up nice and tall, put a big smile off your face before we deal with those triggers, right? So, triggers. We've all heard of the word triggers, right? Triggers are strong emotional reactions to something in the present, but it usually activates a lot of unresolved pain from the past, right? And this often feels disproportionate to the current situation. We feel something really big based on something really, really small, because the truth is, it's not just about what's happening right now, but it's about everything that happened before that, right? It's about what it represents internally. And I see this with my mother and my father, right? They've been divorced since I was born, basically. Right? My father's a big drinker, very big drinker. 4 days out of 7, he's drunk. So, very, very big drinker. And he's been like this pretty much almost since I was born. And this obviously is very triggering to my mother. So, and they're divorced, but they happen to live on the same property now. So my dad, if he comes in and if he's had even a sip of alcohol, he can say one word and it triggers my mother, right? The demons come out. And when I was younger, I didn't understand it. I'm like, he hasn't even done anything. He hasn't even said, he's barely let a word come out of his mouth, and there's my mother, right? But it's not representing what's happening in that situation, right? Happening, it's representing the last 10 or 20 years. And triggers will usually find that we have triggers from those closest to us, right? From a family member, from maybe a friend we went to high school with, a partner could trigger us in a certain way. So, triggers are usually created from past experiences or traumas that were undealt with in past relationships where there were needs that weren't met, right? So, in an area that you haven't properly healed, this is where that trigger comes from, right? And it influences your present behavior because the thinking, what happens is this trigger bypasses all rational thinking and it floods the body with adrenaline, right? So run away, fight, freeze, or flight. And all the old fear and the old sadness or the anger or the shame comes up, right? Because remember that the brain cannot tell the difference between what we imagine and what's experienced in reality. So the trigger is reminding us of all those experiencing, and we imagine all these things as it's one massive thing, right? So, how do we deal with triggers? Firstly, you need to develop awareness around what are the situations or the kinds of comments that tend to push your buttons, right? What story does your mind start telling you when you get triggered? And what exactly sets it off? Is it a word? Is it a tone? Is it a situation, a person, an expectation, how something should be? And then you've got to ask yourself, what belief or past experience might be connected to this current trigger, right? We take a pause, we breathe, you ground yourself, you remind yourself that in this moment, I am safe. This is just an old story, and I can choose how to really respond. So, what you could maybe do, or what you could do with your clients in the future if they have a trigger, is you could develop something called a trigger journal, where you write down triggers. Whenever something triggers you, you write it down and you explore this trigger. How is it linked to something in the past? What is this unresolved feeling, this unresolved trauma, or this need that was not met? And then I can start exploring healthier ways to respond in the future. So the next time this happens, I will choose to respond like this instead of this, right? And we actually can create a whole beautiful trigger journal, right? So it's figuring out, what is this reaction really about and how can I heal from it? Rather than being based and being reactive to my conditioning, reactive to what happened before, how can I look at this current situation and make better decisions based on what's currently happening in my life? Right? How can I heal from what happened there? And how can I avoid this trigger from carrying on? Okay, so we're going to have a short break. It's 4:45 Doha time, 4:45 South African time. We're just going to take 10 minutes. So let's meet back at 5:2. In the break, I want you to write down, what are some areas that you feel you may have been triggered before, and how can we respond healthier in the future? Okay. Any questions, please do put them up on the chat. Otherwise, I will see you at 5 minutes to 6. Okay. Thank you, team. See you in a few. Okay. So, ladies, let me know, do I have you back with me? Can you hear me? Can you see me? How was the break? Let me know. How was the break? Did you manage to get any extra in? Hi, Aisha. Good to have you back. Okay, so please let me know. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Give me a big thumbs up if you can hear me and see me. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so we've covered the first two very important points. Let's get going for the next 3 points. Oh, we've covered the first 3 points. Sorry, let's get going for the next 3 points. The next thing we need to develop a self-awareness around is our limiting beliefs and our mental blocks, right? Beliefs are the things that we believe about ourselves, about the world. It's the stories that we tell ourselves, right? So we all have core beliefs that we hold, and it allows us to feel like what is possible or what is impossible. And we all have certain fear-based beliefs as well that either keep us stuck or help us succeed. So a fear-based belief could be something like, I'll fail if I try, or I don't deserve happiness. I'll never be able to achieve this. I'll never lose weight. I'll never be successful. I'll never be rich, right? So what do we do with these fear-based beliefs? And again, we're going to be going way deeper into this in the future. But start asking yourself, which beliefs can you feel showing up that may be potentially keeping you from achieving success or from achieving your goal? Start practicing belief flipping. So write out a limiting belief and then replace it with an empowering belief. So similar to when we did the self-talk one, right? If I said, I'm not good enough, and that was a recurring limiting belief, Perhaps I could reframe this belief to say, I am capable and always learning, right? So, how can we flip this belief to something more positive? Remember, whatever we're saying in our brain, our body is going to respond, and our psychology, our nervous system is going to respond as if this is the truth. Could be helpful to ask what is the opposite of the belief, and why could that also be the truth? Right? So I'm not good enough. What's the opposite? I am good enough. Why could that also be the truth? I am good enough because of this, right? We've got this beautiful brain, and this brain is designed to give us, it's like a supercomputer, right? It's designed to give us answers. So, in order to get good answers, we need to get really good at asking really good questions, right? If I have to ask myself, why am I not good enough? My brain is not going to rationalize and ask, am I good enough? Am I not good enough? My brain is just going to give me answers to why I'm not good enough. It's going to give me thousands of answers because of this, because of this, because of this. Whereas I can shift the question, shift the belief. I am good enough. Why am I good enough? And I'll get answers to that. Remember that whatever we focus on, we move towards. So we need to start shifting our focus to what we're wanting to achieve. Right? Step number 5, developing self-awareness around our values and our core desires. Right? What truly matters to you, not what you should care about based on society, based on your upbringing, right? But what do you, as an adult, as however old you are, human being, what is important to you right now at this stage of your life? And are your daily choices aligning with your core values, right? The next thing we want to be aware of is the deeper why behind those goals and decisions. So, what do we do? When do you feel most fulfilled? Ask yourself what values are being honored. So, the next couple of days, when you're feeling fulfilled, when you're feeling happy, ask yourself which values are being honored. When you're feeling unfulfilled or when you're feeling out of alignment, ask yourself which values are being dishonored. So now it's about being aware of those emotional responses, how we're feeling in the moment, and what's going on behind the scenes. Right. So here you could design something called a values check-in, right? So review your weekly decisions and your goals and check in every single week. Are these choices aligning with my core values? Right? You set a beautiful list of core values on Monday with Rory John. So ask yourself, are these decisions that I'm making, are these choices that I'm making, are they honoring those core values that I set out? And if they're not, how can I adjust them to align better? And the final area we want to develop self awareness around is our thought patterns and our focus. Because where your mental energy goes most of the time, that is going to direct how you're feeling, right? So, are you having repetitive worrying thoughts, repetitive fantasies, or dwelling on the past? And is that making you feel a certain way? Do the majority of your thoughts tend to be more optimistic or pessimistic, right? Are they more positive or negative? Are they more empowering or more disempowering? So, where is your mental energy going the majority of the time? Is it going towards what you want or what you're fearing? Right? So now we need to start really being aware of where our thoughts are going. And the thing is, we think 60 to 70,000 thoughts every single day. Isn't that phenomenal? Right? Thousands and thousands and thousands of thoughts. But we only pay attention to a few of those. And the funny thing is, 90% of our thoughts are repeated, the same thoughts as yesterday. So 10% we can change, right? But if we had bad thoughts yesterday, chances are we're going to have bad thoughts today if we don't change, right? So that's why it's important to start shifting those thoughts. So you can create a focus shift ritual. Whenever you catch a negative thought, you can pause and literally catch the thought, right? You can imagine that it's floating in the air and you catch it, right? Or you can throw it down and stomp it. So turn it into something that's a physical ritual. How can you pause? How can you catch this thought? How can you throw the thought away and think of something new? A new positive possibility, a new faith based outcome, a new solution based outcome, right? And how we do this is we frame ourselves first thing in the morning. Today, I choose to feel like this. Today, I choose to focus on this. And that's why those power questions in the group are so important. Those daily power questions that we sent to you in the beginning, that's why they're so important. Listening to motivational stuff in the morning, so important because it sets your mind for the rest of the day. It's not just positive thinking, right? It's rewiring your thoughts, rewiring how you're thinking. It's like literally tuning in to a new radio frequency. So we shift those thought patterns, we shift the focus, we focus where we want to go, we focus on the present moments, we focus on those solutions, and we try and create these focus shift rituals that when we are going back to old patterns, how can we push ourselves back onto track? And the thing is, until we become more mindful and we develop the self awareness, the majority of the time, people will be living on autopilot, feeling like they have no control over their thoughts or emotions or their life. And they're just living in reaction to their environment. And unless someone knows, they have this awareness of what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're doing, they have absolutely no way to change it, right? If there's no awareness, there's nothing to change. But as you become more aware, when you develop your self awareness and you become more aware of what's going on unconsciously, automatically, beneath the surface of your awareness, this is where you kind of wake up from that autopilot state and you're able to take conscious, deliberate action and you're able to take control, right? It's the power to direct your inner voice, to choose better feeling emotions and to make better decisions. So the more we do this, the more we begin to associate what's the real us, what's that awareness, and what's that conditioned response, right? You'll notice when you're behaving in ways that's in alignment with what you want and when you're not. And every little change adds up over time. Every little thought catch, every little rewiring of the self-talk, every little reframing of that limiting belief, right? Every little change adds up over time. And in order to be a good coach, in order to be a good parent, in order to be a good partner, you have to have a high level of self-awareness. Especially when working with a client, you need to be that awareness until they become more attuned to themselves. Because you'll be the one that needs to observe and bring attention to the things that your client may or your child may not be aware of or recognize within themselves. So, as a coach or a change maker, you need to be able to be so aware of yourself that you're also able to be aware of others at the same time, right? So that we can influence not just ourselves, but we can influence the people around us. Okay, so in order to stop this cycle, there's a four-step strategy, right? The four steps are awareness, understanding, kindness, and then problem solving or solution, searching for solutions, right? So awareness, we recognize how are we feeling in this moment. We understand the situation fully. Why am I feeling like this? What is creating these feelings? How am I experiencing it? We take active steps to be more compassionate, more kind, more understanding. It's okay to feel like this. It's okay. It's normal. I'm allowed to be sad. I'm allowed to be angry. And then we problem solve. What's the solution to this? What's the answer to this? How can I get out of this motion? How can I get out of the situation? Right? So, 4 steps to stop the cycle of overwhelm, of stress, of anger. Okay, so I'd like to do a little activity. So, what I'm going to do is ask you to just find a nice position where you're comfortable. You're going to sit back and you're going to close your eyes and you're just going to take a few breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as you start, maybe you can feel that your mind is racing. Maybe there's so many thoughts. You're still thinking about what I said. You're trying to make sense of it. Maybe you're thinking about what happened today. And I want you to just breathe everything out. And every breath, you try and slow down your heart rate. You try and slow down your breathing. Try and bring your awareness to what's happening right now in this moment. What's happening in your body. Is your breathing fast or slow? Can you get it any slower? Take time to appreciate your lungs. When last did you say thank you to your lungs for breathing, to your heart for beating, for keeping you alive, for being able to love, to give love, receive love unconditionally? And every breath, I want you to feel your heart beating. And as you slow down your breath, you're aligning your brain and your heart. And you're tuning into your body. You're tuning into the sensations that you're feeling. Notice those sensations in your hands, in your face, in your shoulders. Maybe you even want to move your head side to side, rolling your neck. And then bring your head back to neutral and try and relax those shoulders. Feeling that tension, trying to release it down your spine. Noticing the sounds that you're hearing around you. What can you hear? What can you sense with your eyes closed? What else can you feel? And then I want you to ask yourself, what is right in this moment right now? What is one thing that's right in this moment? The fact that I showed up here, the fact that I'm on this journey of personal growth and development, the fact that I have this beautiful, healthy body. And yes, we have flaws, we all do. How blessed we are to have such a strong, powerful body. What is beautiful in my life right now? What is beautiful? What can I appreciate? What is something good? Something good in my life right now? Person, a thing, an opportunity. And you're breathing, and maybe you can start to put a smile on your face. You can even place your hand on your heart if you want. And I want you to just fill your heart with gratitude. Gratitude for everything that you are. Gratitude for this mindset, for this journey that you're on. Gratitude for the people that you have in your life. Gratitude for yourself, for showing up, for making it through every single challenge without giving up. And ask yourself, what do I love? What do I love about myself? What do I love about the way that I handle challenges, my resilience, my efforts? What am I most grateful for? And if you catch yourself thinking about something else, that's okay. Just gently guide your mind back to your breath, guide your mind back to your heart, guide your mind back to your gratitude, and let that fill your entire heart, your entire soul. Bring to image, bring to your mind an image of gratitude. What does gratitude look like to you? Who are you when you are most grateful? What do you look like? What do you feel like? Who are you with? Ah, what does gratitude sound like? You're all on mute. So make that sound. Ah, that sound of gratitude, that sound of love and acceptance for everything that I am, for every mistake that I've made, for every obstacle I've overcome. I am so grateful for myself. I'm so proud of myself. Take a nice big breath, and as you exhale, you release any stress, any overwhelm, any tension that you've been carrying. Imagine what it would be like to just let yourself release it, to stop carrying that baggage, to forgive yourself, to allow yourself to be more free, to be more calm, to be more confident, to be more peaceful, to be more happy. How beautiful life would be then. I could just start believing in myself, changing the way that I communicate with myself, changing the way that I see myself. How beautiful life is, and life could be even more. You breathe, and in your own time, you can put a smile on your face as you gently open up your eyes. Let me know, how did that feel? Let me know in the chat box. What difference, what difference do you feel? 2 minutes, right? We took 2 minutes. Could you feel a shift in your energy? Could you feel a shift in your thoughts? What differences did you feel? Let me know. You can either unmute yourself if you want, or you can let me know in the chat box. Was there any shift? Was there any difference? So, Carolyn, I don't know if you're speaking, but I'm unable to hear you.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry, no, I wasn't. I was waiting for you. But I realized my camera wasn't up. Um, I think whenever you do that kind of thing, it's giving you, it's not often, or at least when not everybody does this kind of thing. For me, it's like cleaning your teeth. You don't not clean your teeth. This is, for me, cleaning your insides and setting your day. And what you're doing is, like you say, 2 minutes. That's all it was. All it is giving yourself acknowledgement, whether you're feeling good or bad. But especially if you're feeling low, it allows you to start bringing gratitude in, start making yourself feel better. Think about all the things you love, what brings you joy. So it really does set you up for the day, and it doesn't take very much, as you've just proved.
right. And let me know in the, well, either Carolyn or the ladies in the chat, what difference did you feel in those 2 minutes before we started it and afterwards? Did anyone feel any sense of difference physiology wise with their Priya says more calm, right? Feel more calm, feel thankful and happy. Marwa says yes, right? Did anyone feel like things have just slowed down a little bit? Did anyone feel something like slowing down of the thoughts, slowing down of the chaos, right? And the thing is, in that state, it's a lot easier to make more, more better decisions, right? Decisions that are going to serve us. Because if we're feeling overwhelmed, if we're feeling stressed, or if your client is feeling stressed or overwhelmed, you can literally just do this activity for 2 minutes. And what it allows them to do is move from that state, that sympathetic, that state of adrenaline, that state of cortisol, where the adrenaline is pumping, the body's in a fight or flight mode, and it just shifts the body into this state, this parasympathetic state, right? And in this state, we're able to heal, we're able to rest, to down regulate. The brain is actually switches its mode of thinking. Instead of fighting and flying, fighting or fleeing or freezing, we actually move to a slower state where we can make more rationalized decisions, right? So it allows you to stop and to make a more better decision from a better place, right? You slow down that chaos. And it allows your clients to actually be able to get in touch with what they're feeling rather than just thinking from their brain, right? Thinking from reacting and responding. They can now actually think about, how do I actually feel, right? So now we could ask ourselves, what would I prefer to think about instead of what I was thinking about before? Was that helpful? How can I think about this that it can be more helpful? Is there a different way I can look at this decision? What is the solution to this, right? Not what is the worry, what is the fear, but what is the solution, right? So now we can actually start creating a solution-based focus, right? So we use this not only for ourselves, but for anyone in our life who's struggling. Remember that every word counts, every thought matters. Every single time we are either wiring ourselves for negativity and repeated negativity, or we're rewiring ourselves for positivity. And the brain's natural wiring is negativity, because the brain's natural instinct is to try and keep us safe, wants to keep us safe from all potential threats, right? The brain is not designed to keep us happy. That is our duty. That's our job, to search for that happiness, to search for that fulfillment. The brain is just trying to keep us safe. The heart, though, the heart understands fulfillment. The heart understands unconditional love, right? So by doing this breath work, by doing the small meditation, we allow the heart and the brain to align. Okay, beautiful. So that's called present moment awareness. It's a beautiful, cute little activity. And remember that you cannot change what you're not aware of, right? So be patient. It takes practice. It takes repetition. It's repeating itself every single day, every single thought. You're literally becoming a different person at a cellular level. And what it really comes down to is recognizing that you have a choice. If you become aware, you have the ability to choose to think about whatever makes you feel better in this moment, to think about what's happening from a more empowered perspective, in a way that's giving you hope for the future, in a way that's giving you inspiration or empowerment instead of the opposite, right? We get to choose. Okay, so we've got 5 minutes. I want you to answer these questions. And again, if you feel like this is something you've already dealt with, you've already dealt with that inner negative self-talk, you've already corrected that, that's beautiful, that's fine, right? But then write these questions down as a way to ask your clients these in the future. So question number 1, when you make a mistake, how could you respond with more compassion? Question number 2, what does the highest, most worthy version of me look like? How do they act? How do they think? How do they speak? How do they feel about themselves? And the final question, what would your life look like if you learned how to love and accept yourself unconditionally, knowing exactly who you are and accepting all of your flaws, whilst committing to constantly growing and improving? We learn to love ourselves unconditionally along the way, just the same as we love our partner or our friend or our children, even though they're also not perfect, right? Even though they also make mistakes. Okay, so you've got 4 minutes. Write out the answer to these questions. Give me a nice big thumbs up once you're done so I know. Just give me a nice big thumbs up when you're done, and I know you're done. Got you, Priya, got you, Carolyn, got you, Marwa, got you, Jolna. Beautiful. Okay, beautiful ladies. So you know what it is. It's time for our reflections. Let us know what was your biggest win from today's session. How did you find it? What was your biggest win? Carolyn, you're first on my screen, so I'm going to start with you. If you do not mind, just unmute yourself. There you go.
Hi. What's my biggest win? Well, I have to be honest, over the years, I have got to a stage now where I don't do very much negative talk to myself, if any, really. Um, because especially being in menopause, you have to forgive yourself a lot for saying and doing stupid things anyway, and forgetting things because of the brain fog. So I've got to a point, especially like with my daughter, you talk about triggers. I think the triggers, I'm aware of triggers, but you've kind of, I guess, with doing this session, you start thinking about those triggers. And I think triggers for me is sometimes my daughter triggers me. I think it's tone. And I know that's because I have that tone. So she only gets to a certain tone. And I know that rather than listening to her, I'm jumping down her throat. She's a lot older now, so it's not nearly so bad. But my biggest triggers now actually is driving in Doha. Honestly, it's the only time I find myself angry now because I get frustrated because I'm dealing with rude, inconsiderate people. But then what you do is you find yourself doing the same, you know? And
Conforming.
honestly, every time I go out is I try and think, well, I'm going to be positive today. And then sometimes, when you're in it, when you've been triggered, you actually are swearing to yourself, and you can feel all of this negative energy in you. And sometimes when you're in it, it's very difficult to get yourself out because you're trying to think, right, okay, so what's triggered? Okay, Carolyn, so calm down. But when you're in it, you're in it. It's very difficult to get yourself out of it, isn't it?
Yes,
Um,
yes.
I think really probably that, to be honest with you. And going back to my daughter, I know myself, which is what I've had to work on a lot. is my tone. My sister and I mirror each other, and we don't realize what a strong tone we have. So, and we sometimes come across a lot more direct than we mean to be, but that's also our culture, which is another thing here in Doha, isn't it? When you've got so many different cultures and they all work different ways, whereas the British and Europeans generally are quite direct. I think
Yes,
some of the South
absolutely.
Africans are very direct as well, aren't they?
I think some. I think I
Yeah,
find the Europe culture a little bit more direct.
more so, more
Yeah.
so. Yeah, yeah. So I think that's always been work. I think I've come a long way, but I never think, yeah, there's always work to do on ourselves.
I think because creating your journal, right? What your like what journaling is so much self-awareness. So for you
Hmm.
to have developed your own journal and as how in depth it is, I mean that would have taken a lot of self-reflection and then you almost master it by creating it. So I think
Yeah.
that for you, like self-awareness, I mean,
Uh,
probably embed itself throughout that entire process and whatever it is that led to that process was also what like helped obviously develop the self-awareness. So yeah, I think that's great.
yeah.
But again, it's like
Yeah.
looking how can I implement this for my clients?
Yeah, definitely. And
Awesome.
I think that's what I love about all of this is all these areas when it comes to personally, I can give myself a bit of a pat on the back because if I'd looked at myself 7 years ago, I wouldn't have been aware of any of this. Whereas now I've actually come through, lived through, and very aware of it all. But doing it with a client is a very different kettle of fish, which is why I'm loving all of this. And I was talking to Rory about it today, and I know in the next month we'll pull all that together because at the moment we've just got to make sure that our own mindset and our own awareness and our own values and own self-talk, etc., is where it needs to be.
Absolutely. Beautiful, Carolyn. Thank you.
Practice what you preach, as they say.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carolyn. Priya, let us know.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Uh, Perfectly.
Um, so for me, I'm very much on the same page as Carolyn. Yeah, totally can get exactly what she's saying, and I think very similar journey. And what this whole it's not just what I'm taking away from each individual session. I think the whole build up of it is for me that um, I've been on this journey for the last 10 years, 11 years. When I moved to South Africa in 2013, everything changed for me. And so it's been growing from there. And now hearing you telling me all the different parts of what a life coach should be, what you should be, um, how you should be working with others in terms of, when they come to you and being a life coach, I think I'm already doing it. I've already been doing it. And it's just highlighting that to me every session. Okay, so I've been on the right path then. I am doing the right things. This is exactly so maybe I should have been already like starting this journey years ago. But there has to be that point in your whole for you individually when it resonates and you're like, okay, no, this is the right time now. And then our paths crossed somehow, and you know what is meant to be when it's meant to be. But I think from everything you're saying and realizing, so I've accepted myself as I am. I do love myself. I have no questions. And if you don't love me, you don't like me, then I hope that you can work through that because it's really not my problem. And I'm not going to lose sleep over it and I'm not going to worry about it because where I am, I've worked hard on being where I am. So I'm happy. Not saying that I'm perfect and not saying that I get everything right. And I think for me, my facial expressions give away a lot. Like I can't hide my feelings and my face gives away sometimes what it shouldn't. So I need to work on that. And yeah, I also find that I'm quite direct and being in South Africa, I mean, you mentioned driving in Doha. Wow. coming from the UK and driving in South Africa has been a hell of an experience. I mean, it's like not being, I understand South African people because I've been amongst them a lot, but it's like every rule is here to be broken. Why have a rule? There's no enforcement, and everyone's just like speeding and just pulling out in front of you, doing whatever. So you get that, but it doesn't annoy me anymore. Just okay, this is where I am. So the what triggers me is just ignorance in many ways across the board. It's just pure ignorance where people just don't take the time to understand another culture, another way of life, another person. I mean, in the last 10 years, I think just as people, we're dealing with so many different things in terms of, especially like just even just like sexuality, like people are embracing all different sides to them. And that's their choice and that's their right. But it's just pure ignorance, just saying for that subject, where like everyone's so blinkered. So that's my biggest trigger. And I think for me, I have to learn to accept, okay, not everyone thinks the same. I mean, I do accept it, but it's just, making sure that I don't make someone else, um, my face doesn't give it away what I'm thinking. So and everything, every session is bringing it all like to the surface more. It's making me realize more. I'm on the right journey, but there's just a few little things I need to tweak.
Beautiful. Lovely, Priya. Thank you. And Priya, just out of interest, do you find that South Africans are more direct or that UK people are more direct?
No, people are definitely more direct. I find South Africans far more friendly, far more accommodating and understanding. They'll be like, oh, shame. Oh, bless. You know, uh,
Shame.
yeah, shame. And the
Oh,
word shame is so different. It's so different here than what we use it.
yeah.
So definitely. And yeah, just far, far more friendlier. But I think it's just because the pace of life, especially in Durban, it's
Yes.
it's much slower. So
Yes.
I born and bred Londoner, and it was just like go, go, go. And it made me realize, oh, there's a whole different world out here. And yeah, I mean, the amount of friends that I have made since I've lived here and the amount of people I come across, and every day I meet someone new that will smile back at me and just for no reason, just have a little chat.
Yes. Greeting in the streets.
Yeah, that really does happen here. So
Yeah.
that's been very nice.
Nice. Beautiful. Thank you, Priya. Jilna.
Hi, very good evening to all. It was such a nice session, very therapeutic, healing. I really liked it. Thank you for that. So, for me, like when I joined to this emotional intelligence course, I felt like, it's something like when you get or when you are sad or something like you can control your emotions. That's what like I really took it. But now when you said that every emotions need to be felt and it's there for a reason, it was really something soothing for me. I'm a kind of a person, sometimes it's so hard for me to control my emotions and I show it in a wrong place or a wrong people. I'll tell you an example what happened in my life. It sounds funny for you guys, but just an experience. So I joined for a driving class 2 months back. So here in Doha, you had to go first the parking test. So it was all good. I was driving because somebody told me to achieve something in life, you have to take a decision which you are always scared to. Now, for me, I was always scared of driving. So I thought, why not? I will join. So I joined. Everything went well and good. The first exam, L test, L parking. So I went for the L parking. I failed in the first attempt. I said, it's okay. I can do it. Somehow I managed. I went for the second. I failed again. So, after that, till now, I didn't go back. I stopped it there. I made my mind like, I cannot do this. This is not for me. But, after this session, I got like, I'll not tell that I will go, but something like a 50 or 30% I can tell. I'm still coming up with that idea to go and rejoin there. Thank you.
Beautiful, Jonah. Thank you for sharing your story with us. I know someone who's failed their driving license 3 times, and then they went again the fourth time and they passed it. So there's hope.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Marwa.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
So for me, the biggest one for today, first naming the emotions. I think it's really important to be aware what exactly I am experiencing because I used to like whenever I feel low without knowing exactly what is the emotion itself, like I just go and sleep. So that was my response. But I feel now, no, I have to name the emotion and deal with it as I should, as an awareness, as someone with self-awareness. The second thing is dealing with triggers. Actually, you reminded me of the way that you explain about how to deal with triggers. I used to use it before, and it's really helped me. And now I feel like I have to go again and do it because it's really amazing and it's really helped. And of course, the four steps to break the cycle.
Nice. Beautiful, Marwa. Thank you. Okay. Okay, and just so you ladies know, we do still have a full session on emotional intelligence where we do go like step by step by step. Once we experience the emotion, how to shift from that emotion to another one. So there is still that coming up, which is nice and juicy. This session was more just awareness, right? We just want to start developing awareness into these areas, but we're still going to dig much deeper into them. Okay, so ladies, next week I think it is the art of fulfillment, if I'm not mistaken, which is quite a juicy one. We're gonna uncover the core elements of fulfillment, what creates fulfillment, what lessons are fulfillment. So that's quite a nice one. So can't wait to see you guys there. I hope you all have a lovely, lovely weekend, and we will see you next week. Bye bye. See you. Bye, ladies.